Please welcome Phyllis Schlafly.
Thank you, John, Dot, Jesse, and good conservative friends. It may seem hard for the young people here to realize, but 35 years ago, conservative was not a popular word. Only a small percentage of Americans identified with the word conservative, and those who hoped to survive in the liberal political and media environment avoided the conservative label. The authentic voice of conservatism in the 1950s was Dean Clarence Mannion. He nourished the conservative movement in its infancy and popularized it through his books, radio broadcasts, and speeches. When it appeared that the only possible presidential candidate capable of wearing the true mantle of conservatism was a then little-known senator, Barry Goldwater, from a then little state, Arizona, Dean Clarence Mannion had the idea that the situation called for a book describing the conservative ideology. But Dean Mannion did something more important than just having the idea that Barry Goldwater should write a book. Dean Mannion gave Barry's book its title, The Conscience of a Conservative. Goldwater's best-selling book embedded in the national consciousness the fact that conservatives do have a conscience, that we stand for eternal moral principle, for time-honored standards such as truth and patriotism, and that we hold ourselves and our nation accountable for our actions. That was a radical new thought in American politics, and it certainly did not win elections right away. But in greater numbers every year, politicians started coming out of their tunnels and admitting out loud that they were conservatives. By 1980, the election of Ronald Reagan proved that conservatism is mainstream America. And now the latest Worthland poll this year reports that 62% of Americans call themselves conservative. The word conservative is now so widely used that most politicians call themselves conservative even when they are closet liberals. Now, we don't have a national czar of conservatism to tell us who is authentic and who is not, and of course we don't want one. But we do have a man who has served for the last 2 decades in the United States Senate as the conscience of conservatives. His name is Jesse Helms. Conservatives know that despite current popular opinion to the contrary, the character of a public official does matter. In fact, it matters a great deal. A public official cannot lie and cheat in private life without those deviances carrying over into his public life. Character is not something you're born with. Character is not acquired in solitude. Character is forged through meeting life's challenges and making life's many moral and social decisions based on good conscience and right principles. If Jesse Helms had remained a broadcaster on a local North Carolina television station, giving his opinions on the air with no one daring to answer back, we would all be the losers. But because we would never have had a real-life role model of a public official who can always be true to his conscience, despite the pressures and temptations that surround all who are close to the chambers of power. You have to be where the action is and face the criticism and the controversy in order to develop a sterling character. And Jesse Helms took on many a controversial battle and survived. That man of action, Theodore Roosevelt, said it like this: "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who strives valiantly, who spends himself in a worthy cause. Only he can know the triumph of high achievement." Jesse Helms has known high achievement. It would have been great to have had Jesse at the helm of our foreign policy, but circumstance dictated another role for him. And that circumstance, that role, is a more important one. He has been conservatism's conscience. He is the standard by which others can be measured. A poet of the last century, in a time of stress similar to ours, called for some real men as leaders in words I cannot improve upon. God give us men A time like this demands strong minds, great hearts, true faith, and ready hands. Men whom the lust of office does not kill. Men whom the spoils of office cannot buy. Men who possess opinions and a will. Men who love honor. Men who cannot lie. Well, God did give us a real man named Jesse Helms. His trumpet never gave an uncertain sound. That's why he has been the conscience of conservatives in a time when so many deviated from the straight and narrow. Public office did not corrupt him. We're told that no one is irreplaceable, but that may not be true in the case of Jesse Helms. There just isn't any other national leader like him. It's so easy to go with the flow, to bend with the wind, to follow the polls instead of your conscience. It's so easy to be silent when it takes courage to speak. Of course, silence can be golden, but it can also be yellow. But the man with a conscience cannot hide behind silence and evasions. He cannot fall back on the comfortable excuse that everybody's doing it. The man with a conscience has to make the hard decisions because the truth is the truth. I wanted to be the poet laureate at this occasion, but I found I had to borrow from a verse written by a great American man of letters, Ralph Waldo Emerson, about one of the most distinguished United States senators of the last century. I believe these words apply equally to Jesse Helms, and I've taken just a few liberties with the original in order to make it fit the man we honor tonight. Nature cast Jesse in the heroic mold of those who rescued liberty of old. When the rising storm of party roared, he stood on principle, inviting all aboard. While party hotheads were perplexed with fears, calm as the morn, this manly patriot appears. When at last his clarion accents broke, it was as if the conscience of the country spoke. Yes, Jesse Helms is not only the conscience of conservatives, but he's also the conscience of our country. Thank you, Jesse, for keeping the faith and for never letting us down.